The sun had just begun to set, casting golden streaks across the quiet suburbs of Maplewood. Hannah Miller, recently divorced mother of 2 daughters, Emily and Chloe, decided it was time to start fresh. They moved into a quaint old house on the outskirts of town. The house had charm, creaky wooden floors, vintage wallpaper, and an attic filled with forgotten treasures left by the previous owners. It was in that attic where everything began. Emily, the younger of the 2 at 10 years old, was a curious and imaginative girl. While exploring the attic, she stumbled upon an antique wooden box, intricately carved with Hebrew letters and symbols. The craftsmanship was mesmerizing, and though it had no visible lock, it wouldn't open. She brought it down to show her family. "What do you think it is?" Emily asked, her eyes wide with excitement. "It's probably just an old jewelry box," Chloe, her 16-year-old sister, replied dismissively. "Or a junky souvenir." Hannah, glancing over, gave a faint smile. "Be careful with it. It might be valuable." That night, Emily placed the box on her bedside table. As she drifted to sleep, she heard faint whispers emanating from the box, like a distant chant in a language she couldn't understand. She woke with a start but dismissed it as a dream. Over the next week, Emily grew increasingly obsessed with the box. She carried it everywhere, muttering under her breath as if she were having a conversation. Hannah noticed the shift and tried to intervene. "Emily, you need to leave that thing alone. It's just a box," she said firmly. "It's mine," Emily snapped, her voice uncharacteristically deep and menacing for a 10-year-old. Hannah was taken aback. Emily had always been sweet and mild-mannered. Chloe, too, began to notice strange occurrences. Doors slammed on their own. The temperature in Emily's room would plummet, even on warm days. At night, shadows seemed to dance along the walls. One evening, Chloe witnessed Emily sitting in the dark, staring at the box as it slowly creaked open on its own. Inside were peculiar items: a lock of hair, a dried rose, and a crumpled piece of paper covered in faded Hebrew writing. "What are you doing?" Chloe whispered, her voice trembling. Emily turned to her with a sinister grin. Listening, disturbed, Chloe confided in Hannah, but Hannah brushed it off as childish imagination. However, when Emily's behavior escalated, violent outbursts, speaking in guttural tones, and unnatural strength, Hannah couldn't ignore it any longer. She reached out to a local rabbi, Rabbi Ezra, known for his knowledge of folklore and the occult. When Rabbi Ezra saw the box, his face paled. "This is a Dybbuk box," he explained gravely. "It's said to contain a restless spirit, bound by ritual to the physical world. Whoever opens it invites the spirit into their life. But it's sealed." Hannah protested. "Not anymore," the rabbi said, his voice somber. "Once the spirit finds a host, it will do whatever it takes to stay." Emily's possession deepened. Her once bright eyes became hollow, her voice echoing with inhuman tones. The box seemed to feed on her, drawing her further into its grasp. Desperate, Hannah and Chloe worked with Rabbi Ezra to find a way to expel the Dybbuk. The exorcism had to be performed on the night of a new moon, a time when spiritual energy was at its peak. The ritual was complex, requiring ancient chants, sacred oils, and the strength of unwavering belief. As they prepared, the house itself seemed to fight back. Lights flickered, walls groaned, and the air grew suffocating. Emily sat bound in a chair in the living room, the box placed before her. She laughed mockingly as Rabbi Ezra began the incantations. "You think you can take me?" The voice from Emily's lips taunted, layered with a guttural growl. "She is mine." The temperature plummeted, and shadows writhed like living creatures. Hannah held Chloe close, tears streaming down her face as she watched her youngest daughter thrash violently against the restraints. Rabbi Ezra persisted, his voice steady despite the chaos. The Dybbuk fought harder, unleashing a storm of energy that shattered windows and knocked over furniture. But with each chant, the spirit weakened. Finally, with a deafening scream, a dark, amorphous figure erupted from Emily's body, drawn back into the box. The lid slammed shut, and the house fell silent. Emily collapsed, unconscious but alive. The family wept with relief as Rabbi Ezra sealed the box with a sacred blessing, ensuring the spirit could never escape again. He advised them to bury it deep in the ground, far from any curious hands. The experience left scars, physical and emotional, but it also brought the family closer together. They moved out of the house soon after, determined to leave the horrors behind. The box was buried in an unmarked location, but legends whispered that it was only a matter of time before someone, somewhere, unearthed it again. Late one night, in another part of the world, a young boy exploring an overgrown field stumbled upon something peculiar. It was a wooden box, intricately carved with strange symbols. And so, the cycle began anew. The old farm sat in isolation, surrounded by dense woods that whispered secrets through the wind. Amanda Kim, a reserved woman in her late 30s, lived there with her teenage daughter, Clara. They led a quiet life, raising bees and selling honey at the local market. Amanda had long since abandoned the chaos of city life, fleeing from something she refused to speak about, a shadow from her past. Clara, though obedient and loving, was growing restless. She often wondered why her mother shunned technology and why they never spoke of Amanda's own mother, Clara's grandmother. Any mention of Amanda's past would elicit sharp warnings. Don't ask about her. Don't think about her. One day, a visitor arrived, a man in traditional Korean garb, holding a small wooden box. Amanda's face paled when she saw him. "You shouldn't have come here," she hissed. "She wanted you to have this," the man said, bowing deeply. He placed the box on the table and left without another word. Clara stared curiously at the box. It was small and ornate, carved with intricate patterns and Korean symbols she couldn't read. "Mom, who is that?" Amanda didn't answer. She took the box and shoved it into a cupboard, slamming the door shut. "Forget you saw it." But Clara couldn't forget. That night, as Amanda slept fitfully, Clara retrieved the box. Inside were strange items: a lock of gray hair, a charred photograph of a young Amanda standing beside an older woman, and a small pouch filled with ash. As Clara examined the items, she felt a cold breeze sweep through the room, though the windows were closed. From that night on, strange things started happening. Clara would wake to whispers in Korean, though she didn't understand the words. Amanda grew increasingly paranoid, burning incense and muttering prayers in a language Clara barely recognized. One evening, Clara confronted her. "Mom, what's going on? Who was that man? And what's in the box?" Amanda finally broke down. "It's your grandmother," she said, her voice trembling. "Her spirit is angry. She always wanted control, even in death." Amanda explained that her mother, Sunhee, had been a strict and domineering woman, obsessed with tradition and honor. When Amanda fled her abusive household to build a life in America, she severed all ties. Sunhee had cursed her, vowing that her spirit would haunt Amanda until she returned to the family fold. "I thought I could escape," Amanda whispered, tears streaming down her face. "But she's found us." The haunting grew worse. Clara began seeing a shadowy figure lingering in the corners of their home, always watching. The bees, once calm and industrious, became agitated, their hive buzzing with unnatural ferocity. One night, Amanda woke to find Clara standing in the middle of the living room, her eyes glazed over, speaking in a deep, unfamiliar voice. "Why did you abandon me?" the voice demanded. Amanda screamed, shaking Clara until she snapped out of the trance. Desperate, Amanda decided to perform a ritual to banish Sunny's spirit once and for all. Amanda reached out to an old family friend, Mrs. Park, who was knowledgeable in Korean shamanic practices. Together, they prepared for the ritual. They needed to summon Sunny's spirit, confront her, and break the curse. The night of the ritual was stormy, lightning illuminating the dark sky. Amanda and Clara sat in the center of a salt circle, surrounded by candles. Mrs. Park chanted ancient prayers, summoning the restless spirit. Sunhee appeared, a shadowy, twisted figure with hollow eyes that burned with rage. "You disrespected me," she hissed. "You abandoned your family. You deserve to suffer." Amanda, trembling but resolute, faced her mother's ghost. "I won't let you hurt Clara. Your anger dies here. But Sunhee's spirit was strong. She lashed out, the wind extinguishing the candles and shaking the house. Clara, terrified but determined, stepped forward. "You're not just hurting her," she cried. "You're hurting me too." For a moment, Sunny's rage faltered. She stared at Clara, her shadowy form flickering. "I only wanted what was best for my family," she said, her voice softer now, tinged with sorrow. "You can't control us from beyond the grave," Clara said firmly. "Let us go. Let us live." Amanda and Clara's combined courage weakened the spirit. Mrs. Park completed the chant, and with a final scream, Sunhee's spirit was sucked into the wooden box. Amanda sealed it with wax and buried it deep in the woods, ensuring it would never resurface. Life on the farm slowly returned to normal. The bees calmed, the whispers ceased, and the oppressive weight lifted from their home. Amanda and Clara grew closer, finding strength in each other as they navigated the scars of their shared trauma. Though the haunting had ended, Amanda began sharing stories of her childhood with Clara, passing down the lessons and traditions of their Korean heritage in her own way. They honored Sunhee, not out of fear, but with understanding and forgiveness. But deep in the woods, the buried box remained, waiting for the next soul foolish enough to disturb it. The St. Helena Institute for Spiritual Warfare stood at the edge of a mist-covered cliff, its spires reaching into the stormy sky. Once a monastery, it had been repurposed by the Vatican to train priests in the ancient rite of exorcism. Few were allowed entry, and fewer still survived its trials. Sister Evelyn Carter, a compassionate yet unorthodox nun, found herself transferred to St. Helena under mysterious circumstances. Evelyn was no ordinary nun. Haunted by visions since childhood, she believed she had a gift, a deep, unshakable connection to the spiritual realm. But her place at St. Helena was controversial. Women were forbidden from performing exorcisms, a tradition the church staunchly upheld. Evelyn's arrival stirred unease among the priests and students. Whispers followed her through the cold stone corridors. Father Marcus, the institute's stern and skeptical head priest, warned her to keep to her duties and avoid the exorcism chambers. But Evelyn couldn't ignore her visions. Each night, she dreamt of a young girl trapped in darkness, her cries for help drowned by a demonic growl. One morning, while tending to the chapel, Evelyn overheard Father Marcus and Father Thomas discussing a difficult case, a young girl named Sophia, whose possession had baffled even the most experienced exorcists. Evelyn's heart ached at the mention of Sophia. She knew, deep down, that this was the girl from her visions. Against orders, Evelyn found her way to Sophia's room. The child was bound to her bed with rosary chains, her frail body convulsing as she muttered in an ancient, guttural language. The air was thick with the stench of sulfur, and the walls bore deep claw marks. "Sophia," Evelyn whispered, stepping closer. The girl's eyes snapped open, black as night and filled with malice. "Why have you come, Evelyn?" the demon snarled, its voice layered with tormenting echoes. "You don't belong here." Evelyn froze. How did it know her name? Before she could react, the demon laughed, a bone-chilling sound that echoed through the room. "You think you can save her?" it taunted. "You couldn't even save your own mother." The word struck Evelyn like a dagger. Memories of her mother's suicide, of her unanswered prayers as a child, flooded her mind. Tears streamed down her face, but she stood firm. "You don't belong here," Evelyn said, her voice trembling but resolute. "Leave this child." The demon only laughed harder. "She's not the one I want." Father Marcus discovered Evelyn in Sophia's room and dragged her out furious. "You've endangered us all," he shouted. "You have any idea what you're dealing with?" Evelyn fought back. "This isn't just a possession," she argued. "It's something worse. That demon knows me. It's connected to me." Reluctantly, Father Marcus admitted what he had been hiding. Decades ago, Evelyn's mother had sought help from the church, claiming she was haunted by a demon. The church had failed to save her, and her suicide had been ruled as mental illness. But Marcus knew the truth. The demon had been real. and now it had returned for Evelyn. Sophia's condition worsened. The demon's power grew, spreading darkness throughout the institute. Lights flickered, sacred artifacts shattered, and priests fell ill with inexplicable fevers. Evelyn knew time was running out. Despite the church's rules, she demanded to participate in Sophia's exorcism. Father Marcus reluctantly agreed, knowing they had no choice. Evelyn's connection to the demon might be their only advantage. The exorcism took place in the Institute's chapel, under the watchful eyes of the Virgin Mary statue. Sophia arrived on the altar, her screams shaking the very walls. Evelyn, Father Marcus, and Father Thomas stood together, reciting prayers as the demon fought back with a ferocity they had never encountered. The demon targeted Evelyn, unleashing horrifying visions of her past. She saw her mother, hanging from the ceiling, her lifeless eyes accusing her. She heard the demon's voice. "You prayed, and no one answered. What makes you think they'll answer now?" Evelyn faltered, but Father Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Faith isn't about certainty," he said. "It's about choosing to believe, even in darkness." Renewed, Evelyn stepped forward. She called out the demon's name, a secret she had learned in her visions, Amon. The demon roared, its power momentarily weakening. The room plunged into chaos. The demon lashed out, throwing furniture and shattering windows. The priest struggled to maintain the ritual, but Evelyn pressed on. She recited the final prayer, her voice rising above the cacophony. "Amon," she commanded, "I am not afraid of you. You have no power here." The demon screeched, its form twisting and contorting. Black smoke poured from Sophia's body, swirling violently before dissipating into the air. The child collapsed, her breathing shallow but steady. Evelyn fell to her knees, exhausted but victorious. In the days that followed, Evelyn became a symbol of hope at St. Helena. The church, though reluctant, began to reconsider its stance on women in exorcism. Evelyn stayed on, using her unique gift to help others, facing the darkness she had conquered. But she knew the battle was far from over. The demon's final words echoed in her mind. "This isn't the end. I'll be waiting." And Evelyn, strengthened by her faith and her scars, whispered back, "So will I."